Hello, I am Follygon, and in this video I'm going to show you guys some projection tips for ZBrush. For those that are unfamiliar with projection, it's simply the ability to take form or color data from one piece of geometry and project it onto another, which I have already done for that text information and projected it onto this cube. One of the most common uses for projection in ZBrush is to take geometry that is either dynameshed or simply of a higher resolution and project that onto a lower resolution mesh that you have either auto-retopologized or manually retopoed. Here's an example of that on a low resolution face that has had subdivision levels applied to it and been projected at each step. So I'm going to show you guys how to use projection on something like this character's head and some of the common errors that you'll run into along the way. The first step of projecting anything in ZBrush is to make sure that all of your objects are hidden except for the one that you want to work on. I am going to hold the Shift key and just click on my object or click on this eye icon and it will hide all of my other objects here in my subtool list. Then I'll just tap it again to make sure that that is the only one visible. The next step is to duplicate your object and make sure you're working on the top one. The reason for that is because the top one will contain your undo history, and you might want to retain that later on. So I'm going to be running a Z-remesh on this object. I'm just going to be doing a standard Z-remesh at around a target poly count of 5K, which should be the default. Now after your Z-remesh is finished, what I like to do is turn on solo mode. You do need both of your objects to be visible to activate and work with projection, but as long as the two eye icons are checked over here, you should be good and you should still be able to use solo mode. So from here, let's open up Project and click on Project All. It'll ask if we want to project the polypaint data. I'll just go ahead and click on Always Yes. So now I've projected all the information from the high resolution mesh onto my lowest resolution mesh here. So now the next step is to just press Ctrl D and add a subdivision level and click on Project again. And I'm just going to repeat this process a couple times until I get the desired level of resolution. Alright, let's swap back and forth between our high resolution piece and our low resolution to see if there's anything that we're missing in terms of resolution or data that might not have been projected correctly. And it looks like we're pretty good, so I'm just going to delete that old one and we can move forward with the one that we currently have. Now everything looks fine and dandy on the outside, but if we look here a little closer, specifically at our lips, where they are nice and close together in here, and I'll move my light a little bit just so we can see in here, we can see that the geometry is starting to project from the upper lip onto the bottom. And this is because ZBrush doesn't have any way to tell where it's supposed to project other than this projection distance. There are a couple other sliders in here, but the main one that you want to pay attention to is your projection distance. So what ZBrush does, and what other 3D software does, is it looks at the surrounding geometry within this distance, and it will try to project that information from one mesh onto the other. So how do we avoid little areas like this corner of the mouth, or sometimes back here in the corner of the ear where it's touching or getting a little bit close there? The corner of the eyes can also be a really troublesome area. If you're working on something like a character's hands, it can also have a lot of problem areas between fingers. So I've gone back to my original mesh that did not have the projection errors for the corners of the mouth. And I'm going to show you how we can avoid some of these areas where we might experience some projection issues, like corners of the mouth, corners of the eyes, ears, etc. Anywhere where geometry is pinched or close together. And to do this, we're not even going to need to mess with any of our settings for our projection. So this time what I'm going to do, before projecting onto my lower resolution mesh, I'm going to come in here and just open up my mouth a little bit. And I've already taken some time to create some polygroups here to make this a little bit more easy for me. So I'm going to make some quick selections in here, make a quick mask, and just use my move brush to open up my mouth a little bit. And I know this looks a little bit awkward right now, but for something like this, it's nice, quick, and easy, and it doesn't require any messing with your settings. If you have a really tight area, I would even recommend going through with something like a light move brush and try to round out the corner and just soften the form a little bit. Alright, I think that's going to be good for our purposes here. So let's go ahead and do the exact same thing that we did before. We'll duplicate our head, and then we'll scroll on down, making sure that we're using the top one, and we're going to run a ZRemesh. So now I have my low resolution geometry here, and I'm just going to repeat the exact same process. We're going to run a projection, and then just subdivide and project on up our chain. Alright, now you can see that with the projection that we have created, our lips are conforming to the exact shape that we wanted from our previous high resolution mesh without any errors. The geometry is no longer stretching and bleeding from one mesh to the other. And now that we have something that's maybe a little bit more workable than something that's dynameshed or something that has just some quick auto topology, we can come in here and mask and just reclose up the corners of our mouth with very little effort. Now that my head is cleaned up, it's so much easier for me to go back through and do something like close up my mouth and get my lips kind of pressed back together without worrying about that geometry either combining together later on with Dynamesh or having any issues with projection. Over here in the ear, you can see that we are getting a little bit of another projection error. For something like this, because this is something so small and simple, we could probably just fix this with a quick move brush. If your geometry is a little bit more stretched out than what you're seeing here, and you don't want to take the time to spread out an area or open up your mouth or anything like that, we can also solely select that area and maybe start stepping down and up through our resolution to try to find out where that main area or main problem area is occurring. So here there are some vertices that are just kind of a little out of whack, so I'll take some time to just step up and down through my subdivision levels, smooth that out with my smooth brush. Very easy. And if there's anywhere that needs to have a quick fix, which it really doesn't even look like it needs to, maybe we could add in some additional volume if necessary. Those are some quick tips on using projection in ZBrush, some of the things that I like to look for in terms of errors that are fairly easy to clean up and that are pretty common. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, consider checking out gumroad.com/Follygon, where I host a number of courses as well as all the tools, brushes, and materials that I use in my professional work. Check it out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.